Here are the top stories we are tracking at this hour. Thousands of people flee the central Syrian city of Homs as rebel forces advance further south on the road to the capital Damascus. Syrian rebel leaders say goal of the campaign is to overthrow the government of President Bashar al-Assad. South Korea's ruling party leaders say President Yoon must be suspended. The main opposition fears another martial law declaration. And amid rising attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri to visit Dhaka on 9th of December. Amid calls for resignation by opposition, French President vows to stay in office, says he will name the new Prime Minister within a few days. President-elect Donald Trump names former COO of PayPal, David Sachs, as the White House artificial intelligence and crypto czar. And Romania's top court annuls the result of the first round of the country's presidential election, adding that the entire election process would have to be rerun. A top story at this hour coming from Syria, where thousands of people are fleeing their homes. Thousands of people are currently fleeing the central Syrian city of Homs as rebel forces push their offensive against government forces further south. A week after Islamist rebels seized Syria's second largest city of Aleppo and Hama in a surprise advance deep into government-held territory. Syrian rebel forces entered the central city of Hama on Thursday after a two-day battle, marking another major territorial gain in their week-long offensive against the forces loyal to Damascus and their Russian and Iranian allies. The rebel took the northern city of Aleppo, Syria's business capital, and have since advanced into areas near the heartland of the Alawite minority, who form the bedrock of support for President Bashar al-Assad. The rebel, led by Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, launched their offensive little more than a week ago, just as the ceasefire in neighboring Lebanon took hold between Israel and Assad's ally Hezbollah. The latest escalation in Syria's civil war comes as President Bashar al-Assad's key allies are preoccupied with their own conflict, namely Russia and Ukraine and Hezbollah and Iran with Israel. Until last week, the war in Syria had been mostly dormant for years, but analysts now say it is bound to resume, and it was bound to resume as it was never truly resolved.
Essentials like bread were in short supply in Aleppo in the days after Islamist rebels took control of the northwestern Syrian city from government forces. Reuters visited Aleppo Wednesday and spoke to locals lining up for food and fuel. While a week on, some services are back, including some set up by the rebels. Ahmed Hamdan said some people were not able to get bread at all.
In terms of the bread situation, this is a very, very big crisis. People in their hundreds are at the bakeries. Some people can get bread, and others not at this time. The bread situation, some good people gave us bread. Getting bread has become a struggle.
The insurgents, led by the group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, are trying to show Syrians and the West that they are a viable alternative to President Bashar al-Assad. They've set up several services like traffic control and lifted a curfew. However, gas remains in short supply. One motorist complained prices were too high. It's profiting those in power, he says. HTS is still seen as a terror group by Turkey and the West, even though it cut ties with Al-Qaeda and rebranded itself as a more moderate group. A decade ago, Aleppo was a major battle site between al-Assad's government and rebel forces, a bloody civil war that had no formal end and which killed hundreds of thousands of Syrians and displaced millions. But in the past week, the insurgents led by HTS staged a whirlwind advance in the north of the country. They captured Aleppo last week and Hama this Thursday, which lies more than a third of the way between Aleppo and Damascus, Syria's capital in the south. The onslaught is President al-Assad's biggest challenge in years, and a devastating blow to him and his Russian and Iranian allies.
I just spoke with President Erdogan of Turkey to discuss the latest. I emphasized the urgent need for immediate humanitarian access to all civilians in need and the return to the UN-facilitated political process to end the bloodshed. All parties are obligated under international law to protect civilians. Now, this latest offensive was launched into government-controlled areas by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a group sanctioned by the Security Council, along with a broad range of other armed opposition groups. It has led to significant shifts in the front lines, and tens of thousands of civilians are at risk in a region already on fire. We are seeing the bitter fruits of a chronic collective failure of previous de-escalation arrangements to produce a genuine nationwide ceasefire or a serious political process to implement Security Council resolutions. These must change.
All right, the crisis brewing in Syria is getting worse by the day. Joining us on the show at this point is Dr. Wael Awad. He's a strategic expert, West Asia. Dr. Awad, thank you very much for taking time out. I think first question first, what are the strategic factors in your understanding which are contributing to the fast gains that rebel groups are making, first in Aleppo, then in Hama, now Homs?
Thank you, Sweta. I don't call them rebels. I call them terrorist group led by Al-Qaeda and ISIS. If it is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Abdul Muhammad al-Julani was IS cadres, and then he shifted to his loyalty to Al-Qaeda. Then when the American had $10 million on his head, he changed it into the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So, but the American left up the $10 million on his head. So now you can ask the question why, because he must be doing their dirty job in Syria. So these terrorist group led by Erdogan from Turkey have been invading all these parts of Syria with the guns, with the drones, with the ammunitions, with all the tanks, which is get from the American, from the Turkish, and from the Israelis. Especially it happened after the ceasefire in Lebanon, the next day exactly after the Mossad met with the Turkish intelligence to start the phase 2 of destabilizing this part of the world. And Syria was held on the target, so Syria was the next. And we know that all these things happened because of this invasion has taken place, and the Syrian government didn't want to have civilian casualties moved out of the cities to different places. But the fight is on, the battle is on, and we know that repulsing this kind of movement will take some time. And I think now there is a meeting currently happening in Iraq, where there is the Iranian, the Turkish, the Syrian are meeting in the capital to discuss the Iraqi and the Syrian and the Iranian, the future of Syria and the stabilizing. And secondly, Sweta, which we can see, most of the Arab countries, most of the world have supported Syria integrity, which is a clear indication that those who are fighting in Syria, they are not even 1% of them are Syrian. It's mainly Uzbek, Uyghur, Tajik, Uzbekistan, and even from the north Marrakesh area of the Algeria, of Moroccans, of origin of those of Al-Qaeda. So therefore, let us be very clear about the intention of this people is to destabilize, disintegrate Syria and create havoc in the region. So the American president comes. So the second after Ukraine, they will focus more in West Asia, could be a regional war.
All right. And what are the implications of fall of Aleppo as well as Hama for Assad's regime, both in central as well as northern Syria?
Absolutely. I think it's a major blow because Aleppo is considered the capital, the industrial capital of Syria, like Bombay for India. And it has been there. In fact, 2011, when the uprising started, most of these factories were dismantled and sold at a token price to Turkey, because Turkey were eyeing on Aleppo because they wanted to destroy the industrial city. So it is an industrial city. It is the heart of Syria, and it is also very important in terms of the population living there in Aleppo. The painful point is that Turkey now is claiming that Aleppo is a part of Turkey and not part of Syria. And we could see the flag of Turkey flying over the castle of Aleppo, and also cars from Turkey are now floating into the city, which is, as I have been saying for years, it is the de facto Khalifa Erdogan who has been opened his country as a state sponsor of terrorism to allow all these terrorists to enter Syria at the first place, and then give them shelter in Idlib, where he was occupying it since 2011, and then now unleash this terror into the Syria. So Aleppo is quite important. Hama is also equally important. It's the central of Syria. It's my city, and I know my family are in a deep trouble, and all the people are worried because we don't know when they will slaughter the people. They are trying to give a good image that they are moderate. They are not going to attack civilian, but that is only because the white helmet and Turkish forces have taught them that they wanted to gain the popularity and the loyalty locally and also internationally recognized. So you have to give a good image that you are not a killer, the same savage of Daesh and Al-Qaeda who created havoc in 2011 in most of Syria and Iraq and the rest of the Arab countries during the Arab Spring.
All right, so it does look like they're keeping a face right now, and the mask may fall off later on. Dr. Awad, where are the supporters of Bashar al-Assad right now? We know that Russia is busy with Syria. We know that Iran's focus is on Israel. Is that what is affecting their ability to help Bashar al-Assad?
See, the attack on Syria is not for the first time it happened. We know that we are at war with our neighbor. We know that Syrian part is occupied by Israel, which is the Syrian Golan. We know that this has been on. It has been on before even the Islamic Republic of Iran came to existence in 1979. But let us see what Turkey, the rule was in this region, was to destabilize it and wanted eyeing the Mosul of Iraq and eyeing the northern part of Syria, Aleppo, and also Idlib, the two major cities, as part of Turkey annexation. Because the Americans were worrying them that they're creating a Kurdish enclave within Syria, the northern western part, to extend. So Iran is busy with its own internal affairs, but they were always supporting, and they were the one responsible for making defeat of the Daesh and the terrorist organization in 2015 when they took part in the liberation of these Aleppo, along with Russia, along with the Popular Front of Iraq and Hezbollah and Syrian army. So these are the real people who are fighting terrorism in Syria. Now, Russia busy in Ukraine, but there are Ukrainian intelligence who are helping Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, training them on the drones, because the fight of in Ukraine shifted between Russia and Ukraine into Syria. So the Syrian people are paying the price also. So it may sound like the American wanted to weaken the Russian, in fact, because they have military bases in Syria. They have the military base, which is the only base for them in the Mediterranean Sea. So when the Syrian government falls, definitely this military base will not remain there. So now Iran recognized the danger of this terrorist group coming after Syria, Baghdad, and then it will come to Tehran. So similarly, the Russian also feeling the heat that if the Syrian government fall, it is going to be, they will be out of the Mediterranean Sea. So I think they will regroup their forces to defeat those forces on the ground. If they don't do it, then Syrian situation could break up into a more catastrophe. And even this terrorists and those organizations can advance toward the capital of Damascus and maybe go beyond, because the aim is not only Syria, the aim is also Egypt, because they want to bring back the Muslim Brotherhood organization into there, the Takfiri, the Salafist group, to come back. So this will create an area of insecurity for Israel to declare itself as a Jewish state only. So annexation of Gaza, annexation of West Bank will be legalized by the new American president, Mr. Trump.
All right, so it's going to be a tough road ahead, especially for people of your country right now. But I want to come to what you had earlier mentioned, Dr. Awad. You said your family is in Hama, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you said they are suffering, and you said they are at imminent danger. Now, obviously, the toll of the catastrophe, the war, is going to be felt on a humanitarian level more by people. We know now that thousands of people are currently fleeing some of these cities, including that of Homs. I want to understand from you, where does it go from here on? Because this is now soon going to turn into a humanitarian crisis.
Absolutely. I think the Europeans have recognized and realizing the danger of another influx of migrants or forced immigration from Syria and Iraq, because if this terrorist organization come, definitely the Christians, the minorities of Syria and Iraq will definitely leave the city and leave the country, because they will be at risk at the hand of those Takfiri group. And that is where the dangers lie. The other problem is the economy is in dire situation in Syria because of the American economical sanction for more than 12 years on us. So with the people are feeling the heat. I have no contact with my family for the last 3 days. The internet got disconnected after they enter into Hama. We don't know what is there, but according to my other part of my families are in Damascus. They have gained touch with them. They are safe at the moment, but I don't think they will be safe for a long period if these terrorists who have come from all over the world had no business to be in Syria and claiming to be opposition or claiming to be rebels. I think this is a message I'm trying to give through every channel to the rest of the world, that expose those terrorist groups, and that's the only way we can defeat terrorism.
All right. In which case, I think I'll let you go, Dr. Awad. My last question to you, therefore, is that the advancement of rebels or terrorists, as you put them, into Alawite heartland, how is that likely to impact the cohesion of the loyalist base of Bashar al-Assad?
Look, let me be more sectarian in my talk to you, and finally, Sweta. If you want me to talk in the communal lines, 95% of the Syrian army are Sunni. 5% only are from the minority. So how can it be it's a civil war or it is a communal? It's nothing communal. It is, everybody knows that the Syrian society is a moderate, secular. We have been living all together, coexisting all together. I don't know even my neighbor whether he was a Christian or Alawite. We have lived in that kind of environment in my country. But after the 2011, people start segregating and polarizing the society. They wanted to demonize the president. So they make sure if you demonize it, you will rally all these terrorists to come and fight on the name of Islam and saving Islam. It has nothing to do with Islam. It has nothing to do with Muslim in this part of the world. They are simply a terrorist who is using Islam. They are a trader of religion, has no touch, no knowledge of the religion itself, that they are attacking my country and fighting in the communal line. Latakia, Tartus is a mix of Alawite, mix of Sunni and Christians. And remember, it is the Christians, Syrian Christians, Orthodox Church is a danger, because all this act, it cannot be seen in isolation of what's going on in the Middle East, that they wanted to end the presence of minority Christians and they wanted to have their own Christianity, because that will help the evangelists, the right-wing Zionist group living in the United States, that the Messiah will reborn again. And that's why we have to cleanse Syria, Iraq, Jordan, north of Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, till the new Messiah come and the new greater Israel is created.
At the end of the day, who are going to pay the price of terrorists advancing on their territories. Dr. Awad, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Time for a short break now. We'll be back with more news and stories on the other side. Keep watching News 9.
Has Alu Arjun arrived, or he's just taking off?
If I really want to hit a moon shot, I want the moon.
These are big stories.
It's very unique to Indian cinema.
What would be the relevance of tradition?
I would believe that the first change has to come in the mind.
Heartfelt appreciation to News9 and TV9 network for organizing Global Summit.
I like to thank TV9 for presenting here a wonderful fusion of politics, industry.
जर्मनी और गुजरात के बीच इस मजबूत संबंध सेतु को न्यूज़ 9 ग्लोबल समिट का आयोजन और भी मजबूत बनाएगा। इस विश्वास के साथ आप सभी को एक बार फिर बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
I thank TV9 and the government of Germany for organizing this wonderful conference, and I wish you all the very best.
You remember when someone had hit our car? I had got him to pay up for all the damage.
Yeah, so?
If something goes wrong in this guaranteed return share, I will complain to the exchange and get full compensation. See, this is an agreement.
Dad, you know what? Nobody can promise guaranteed high returns in the share market. Such illegal schemes are sheer fraud. The exchange will not give any compensation for these. That agreement is also useless.
सोचकर, समझकर, invest कर।
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. I am Shweta Kothari. Our next story comes from south of Korea, where a luxury handbag has resulted in a political mayhem. Now, what can a luxury bag do apart from being a style statement? In South Korea, it ignited one of the most dramatic political crises in the nation's history, culminating in the imposition of martial law and discussions of presidential impeachment. At the center of the storm is a luxury Dior handbag valued at about $2,200, which is equal to 1.65 lakh Indian rupees, gifted to the First Lady Kim Kyon-hee in 2022. Now, the story resurfaced back in November of 2023 when a left-leaning YouTube channel leaked footage showing Kim receiving the gift. This single gift unraveled into a political storm this year, although prosecutors cleared Kim of criminal charges after finding no evidence of a quid pro quo. The opposition was unconvinced. They alleged that the bag was a bribe meant to curry favors, calling for an independent investigation. President of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, dismissed these claims. The public, however, saw echoes of past scandals involving misuse of power and corruption. As protests erupted, the government faced mounting pressure. In an attempt to cling to power, Yoon's administration made a very controversial decision this week: the imposition of martial law. The declaration was seen as an overreach, with critics accusing Yoon of stifling dissent and inching towards authoritarianism. It fueled public outrage. Under immense backlash, the government quickly rescinded martial law, but the damage was done. The brief imposition became a symbol of desperation and mismanagement, further eroding Yoon's credibility as the president. At the end, Yoon's presidency is now hanging by a thread. Opposition parties have initiated impeachment proceedings, citing a no confidence in him. The Dior handbag, a symbol of luxury, had inadvertently become the centerpiece of a political reckoning in South Korea. As the nation awaited the outcome of impeachment proceedings, which are likely to take place on Saturday, it's become clear that this wasn't just about a bag. It was about accountability. It was about governance and the fragility of public trust in the leadership. Now, as we await and as the president awaits impeachment, what really lies for South Korea? We're discussing all of that. Joining us on the show is Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a senior journalist at the Korean Herald. Dr. Kumar, thank you very much for taking time out. You know, we're trying to unravel as to what really transpired in south of Korea, and we're increasingly being made aware of the past happenings which have more or less resulted in what led to Yoon really imposing the martial law this week. And it all started, unfortunately, with that Dior bag.
Shweta, you correctly pointed out, but our viewers also need to know that there is a complete disagreement among the people in Korea when it comes to morality in public life. Especially, if you are in public life, you are in politics, and if you are a leader, in that case, your family also has to be politically completely correct and politically moral. So morality in politics in Korea is really expected, especially from the politicians. So this has stemmed from this. We should think in that way. And our viewers also should understand in that way. Bag is also one aspect, but many of her academic credentials also had been challenged, and opposition party was making issues over it since long time, demanding for like very interesting probe investigation. And also recently there were some stock market manipulation allegations also were made for the First Lady Kim Gon-hee. But President Yoon was unhappy about it, and he was not ready to okay the investigation. So that sparked more controversy because people were watching, they were watchful of this all these immoral things happening. Although it still has to undergo investigation, which is one of the biggest demands of the opposition and the people right now. People are not just interested in having investigation on this martial law, but also the First Lady. This is very interesting that our viewers should know.
All right, and the conduct of the First Lady there seems to have spelled doom for President Yoon. Come to think of it, over the last 1 year, and I think we were discussing this about a couple of days ago, when the martial law was really imposed, Dr. Kumar, is that Yoon could have conducted himself better. He was facing an opposition which was relentless. He was facing a popularity which was dwindling day after day, and he was also facing a lot of public backlash. As a result of which, what we now see, he hastily brought about a martial law, which one cannot really justify given that there were no grounds for it.
Given that President Yoon, he is of the background where he knows the prosecution procedures, and he himself had been a law student for a long time, so he is well aware of that matters. But the problem is that he trusted too much the defense minister. This is coming out, and that led him to make a very haste decision, which is a big embarrassment, not for President Yoon only, but also to the whole ruling party. Now, you might have seen today that Han Dong-hoon, who was supporting President Yoon to not have the impeachment, today he was making a U-turn. He came up with a statement that he must be impeached, or he must be at least stepped down. So this is a very interesting facts which is coming out, and as the direction is going towards impeachment, but there are some options. There are some interesting things happening. The most important thing right now is, like many leaders from the ruling party, including the Seoul mayor, he has come out not in support of President Yoon, but he is not in the favor of impeachment. Many leaders of the ruling party, they are thinking that it will backfire to them because they have to go on another elections, which will send a very negative sentiment among the people. Because we should not forget that in 2016, the same PPP, the People Power Party, the ruling party, they had to undergo a huge embarrassment, and they lost power also to Moon Jae-in. So ruling party right now, they just have 8 votes, but those 8 votes are very important and very crucial for them, because these 8 votes are going to decide who is going to be power next. This 8 vote, if it is this unbalanced, then Lee Jae-myung, the opposition party leader, may become the next president. So this is also a political loss to them. So it is very interesting. Things are turning very interesting right now.
It does look like the impeachment process tomorrow will be keenly eyed. I think it's important to then therefore also understand, Dr. Kumar, do you think there'll be alternatives available for President Yoon, or is he likely to be impeached and may definitely be impeached tomorrow?
Well, it is still very early to say, because Han Dong-hoon, he made a statement in the morning, but later he is not meeting President Yoon, because he may also lose the trust of his own party leaders, because ruling party, as I mentioned, is still divided. They don't agree with what Yoon has done, but they do not agree with the impeachment also, because this will have a serious economic and security complications, which public is also not ready. Public is very angry. Opposition, of course, is very angry, but the civil society and think tanks and the political circles are really carefully considering what to be done. And most of the ruling party members are in the favor of going through the constitutional procedure. Like the constitutional court, what they are going to decide, they want to follow. They are not still in favor of impeachment. This is little disappointing to many democratic principle lovers people, but still it is not in favor of impeachment. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and before I let you go, there are of course also fears that if Yoon were to stay, President Yoon may once again reignite debate around bringing about a martial law, and he may once again, bring about that martial law, which is not going to sit well with the conscience of people in South Korea who were shook when the martial law was first instated or first came into effect. Is there a chance that Yoon will stay? And if yes, do you think he will have the power and the wherewithal to once again bring about a martial law? Any merit to those allegations and those fears?
Shweta, chances are very slim that he is going to retain in the power. He may get away with this. That would be a political win for him. But seeing the current anger of people, opposition, and even within the ruling party is not showing that he is going to escape and again regain the power. In worst case scenario, maybe the Prime Minister Han Duck-soo may take charge, and in between it takes like 60 days for the Constitutional Court and other constitutional procedures, investigations to be finalized, even if he is impeached and even if he is not impeached, in both case scenarios. So it will take around 60 days, and within that 60 days, ruling party will have to come up with another leadership that we were discussing a few days ago, that there is a leadership crisis as well underlying within the ruling party and the whole Korea. Lee Jae-myung, definitely he is likely to be the next president elected if things go completely against President Yoon when he is impeached. But the ruling party is not ready to give these hands to give this edge to the opposition party. So it's very politically kind of insecure situation. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It hangs in balance, Dr. Kumar. I think all eyes will be on that impeachment vote tomorrow and the proceedings in South Korea tomorrow. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
And as South Korea's political turmoil deepens, the ruling party leaders have called President Yoon's removal from power, focusing and accusing him of attempting to impose martial law, perhaps once again. Here's the report.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's own party members called for his removal Friday. In a press briefing, leader of the ruling People Power Party, Han Dong-hoon, said Yoon, who shocked the nation by enacting martial law on Tuesday, must be removed in the best interests of the country. But he stopped short of calling for impeachment.
I said yesterday that I would try not to pass this impeachment in order to prevent damage to the people and supporters caused by the unprepared chaos. But I believe that President Yoon Suk-yeol's immediate suspension of office is necessary to protect the Republic of Korea and its people in the light of the newly revealed facts.
Han also said Yoon had ordered the arrest of prominent politicians on claims they were among, quote, anti-state forces. However, South Korea's Yonhap news agency later reported the presidential office denying it had given such an order. Meanwhile, more details are emerging about the chaos that engulfed Seoul on Tuesday night. Yoon's declaration shocked the nation, and parliament, including some in Yoon's own party, voted to oppose it. It was the country's first martial law enactment since 1980 and revived painful memories of its Cold War-era military rule. A special warfare commander speaking on social media of an opposition lawmaker had said he defied an order to drag lawmakers out of parliament and told his troops not to carry live ammunition. The main opposition Democratic Party has scheduled a vote on Yoon's impeachment for Saturday. On Friday, its leader Lee Jae-myung again called for Yoon to step aside.
The declaration of martial law on December 3rd was a rebellion waged by the president in order to maintain or extend his power. It's an act of insurrection. It's a self-coup. The president, who threatened the life of the sovereign people with unconstitutional and illegal acts, cannot be entrusted with national administration even for a moment. We should exclude him from his duties and let our people decide whether he can maintain the position or not.
The national police have launched investigations into Yoon and Kim Yong-yeon, the defense minister who allegedly encouraged him to declare martial law and who has since resigned. Government and military prosecutors are also conducting a joint investigation into the martial law decision, according to broadcaster YTN. Meanwhile, acting defense chief Kim Son-ho said Friday rumors of a second martial law declaration being planned were untrue, and if such an order were given, he said the Ministry of National Defense and Joint Chiefs of Staff would not obey it.
An Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri scheduled to visit Bangladesh on 9th of December amid heightened tensions in Bangladesh and between India and Bangladesh. Now, this marks the first high-level diplomatic engagement between the two countries since the interim government led by Muhammad Yunus took power on 8th of August. Now, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal confirmed the visit during a briefing, describing it as a structured diplomatic engagement. And Misri's visit occurs against the backdrop of significant unrest in Bangladesh, including the arrest of Chinmoy Krishnadas, a former spokesperson for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. Remember, Das was detained at Dhaka's Hazrat Shahjalal International Airport on sedition charges for allegedly insulting the Bangladeshi national flag during a rally. His arrest has sparked outrage among his supporters, leading to violent clashes with security forces that reportedly resulted in death of a lawyer. The visit also coincides with a reported rise in attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh since the change of government. India is expected to address these concerns during Misri's visit, emphasizing the need for Bangladeshi government to ensure protection of all of its citizens and particularly the minorities. French President Emmanuel Macron has made it clear he is staying on course. In a national address on Thursday, Macron reaffirmed his commitment to serve until the end of his term in May of 2027. Now, this comes just a day after a dramatic political upheaval with lawmakers toppling his government led by Michel Barnier.
Le mandat que vous m'avez démocratique.
The mandate you democratically gave me is a 5-year mandate, and I will carry it out fully until the end. I will never take the blame for the lack of responsibility of others, and notably lawmakers who choose, knowingly, to bring down the budget and the government of France a few days before Christmas.
Nous ne pouvons nous permettre ni les divisions.
We can't allow ourselves to be divided or to do nothing. That's why I'll name a prime minister in the coming days. I will ask them to form a government in the general interest, representing all the political parties who can participate in it, or at least who agree not to bring it down.
Qui s'engagent à ne pas le censurer. Le Premier ministre aura à mener ses consultations.
The Prime Minister will lead consultations and will form a tight government in your service. Its priority will be the budget. A special law will be tabled in Parliament before the middle of December, and this temporary law will, as our Constitution stipulates, allow the continuity of our public services and the life of the country. It will apply to 2025, the choices made in 2024.
President-elect Donald Trump has tabbed David Sachs, former COO of PayPal, for a key role in his U.S. administration. Sachs will serve as the White House artificial intelligence and crypto czar, Trump announced on Thursday. The appointment signals Trump's focus on tech and crypto innovation, setting the tone for his upcoming term.
Good evening, America.
Donald Trump has named former PayPal executive David Sachs as AI and crypto czar. In a social media post, the president-elect said Sachs would focus on making the U.S. a world leader in both fields. He says his administration will ensure, quote, the crypto industry has the clarity it has been asking for. Trump once labeled such currencies a scam, but embraced the sector during his election campaign. His victory has seen Bitcoin surge on bets that the new administration will be friendlier to digital assets. This week, the top cryptocurrency broke through the $100,000 level for the first time, though it later dropped back. It's up around 50% since Trump's election win. Sachs was formerly chief operating officer at PayPal. Among other things, he also founded the business social network Yammer. He was an early advocate of cryptocurrencies, saying in a 2017 interview that Bitcoin would revolutionize the internet. One analyst told Reuters that Sachs was seen as a strong backer of crypto with a history of investing in tokens besides just Bitcoin. Earlier in the week, Trump named strong crypto advocate Paul Atkins to run the Securities and Exchange Commission. That added to optimism for the sector, with the U.S. financial watchdog hitherto seen as unfriendly to crypto.
And Bitcoin surged past the $100,000 mark on Thursday, breaking records and exciting even its skeptics. Analysts are calling it the Trump bump, with deregulation expected to fuel further growth. Bitcoin's value has doubled this year, buoyed by major investors and a crypto-friendly future.
Bitcoin catapulted above $100,000 for the first time ever on Thursday, a milestone hailed even by skeptics of the digital asset. The historic surge comes as investors bet on a crypto-friendly incoming U.S. administration, with President-elect Donald Trump a day earlier nominating pro-crypto attorney Paul Atkins to run the Securities and Exchange Commission. The appointment of Atkins, a former top SEC official who has advocated for deregulation, could provide relief for a crypto industry that has chafed under President Joe Biden's hard-charging SEC chair, Gary Gensler. Dan Ives is global head of tech research at Wedbush Securities.
Deregulation clearly is going to happen. A new SEC chair that looks like pro-Bitcoin. Very bullish in terms of this dynamic. So I think a big piece of what we're seeing here is a Trump bump, but I don't think it stops, because I think Trump can be pretty aggressive when it comes to Bitcoin once he's in the White House.
Bitcoin has more than doubled in value this year and is up more than 50% in the 4 weeks since Trump's election victory, which also saw a slew of pro-crypto lawmakers elected to Congress. Analysts say the growing embrace of Bitcoin by big investors this year has been a driving force behind the record-breaking rally. But Mark Chandler, chief market strategist at Bannockburn Global Forex, sees Bitcoin's rise as part of a bigger social and political movement.
The ground that we've been standing on is moving, and these shifting sands, and in this kind of turmoil, we don't know really what's going to be the winners, what's going to be the losers. And I think that in this, and when you're rejecting it, like many of the elections, especially in the industrialized countries this year, have rejected the incumbents. And so I sort of see Bitcoin as part of this rejection of sort of the established values and not just the values of society, but really of the elites.
The total value of the cryptocurrency market has almost doubled over the year to hit a record of over $3.8 trillion, surpassing the value of Apple, according to data provider CoinGecko.
And former U.S. President Barack Obama, who has been mostly quiet in the weeks since Vice President Kamala Harris's election loss, urged a new generation of American leaders and voters to talk with people who they disagree with.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama on Thursday urged a new generation of American leaders to talk with people they disagree with. In a speech at a democracy forum sponsored by his foundation, the former president called for a renewed commitment to pluralist principles and warned of the consequences of failing to do so.
The alternative is what we've seen here in the United States and in many democracies around the globe. Not just more gridlock, not just public cynicism, but an increasing willingness on the part of politicians and their followers to violate democratic norms, to do anything they can to get their way, to use the power of the state to target critics and journalists and political rivals, and to even resort to violence in order to gain and hold on to power.
The Democrat also laid out his vision for building lasting majorities.
In a democracy, power comes from forging alliances and building coalitions and making room in those coalitions, not only for the woke, but also for the waking. We have to be open to framing our issues, our causes, what we believe in terms of we, and not just us and them.
8 years after his second term came to a close, Obama remains one of the most popular figures with his party's base. He and his wife Michelle threw their support behind Vice President Kamala Harris during her presidential run. They delivered rousing speeches around the country and raised millions for her campaign. Despite those efforts, Donald Trump and Republicans dominated at the ballot box in November, winning the popular vote and sweeping both chambers of Congress. In the weeks since, advisors from Obama's one-time inner circle who joined Harris's campaign have drawn fire for failing to admit any mistakes in how they handled the 2024 cycle. That has all sparked an angry blame game inside the party and spurred calls for a crop of younger leaders to take the baton. David Axelrod, a former senior advisor to Obama, told Reuters he thought Obama would be the first to agree, saying, quote, "I think he would say he's run his race, and we need others to step up."
And Russian foreign minister has now justified the use of hypersonic missile in war against Ukraine, saying that it ought to make West understand that Moscow was ready to use any means to ensure no strategic defeat inflicted by its enemies on Moscow.
The United States and the allies of the United States who also provide this long-range weapons to the Kiev regime, they must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call strategic defeat of Russia. So the message which we wanted to sell by testing in real action this hypersonic system is that we will be ready to do anything to defend our legitimate interest. Some Westerners have been pronouncing lately that, well, don't believe that Russia has red lines. They announced their red lines. These red lines are being moved again and again and again. This is a very serious mistake.
And NASA Administrator Bill Nelson announced new delays in the U.S. Space Agency's Artemis program to return astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972, pushing back the next two planned missions amid potential policy changes under President-elect Donald Trump.
Assuming the SpaceX lander is ready, we plan to launch Artemis 3 in mid-2027. That will be well ahead of the Chinese government's announced intention that they have already publicly stated is 2030.
One area that's taken us a considerable amount of time to learn from Artemis 1 is how the heat shield performed during the mission. Obviously, a very critical aspect of the mission. After Artemis 1, we noticed that there was a variation across the appearance of the Apollo heat shield, where the material that coats the capsule at the bottom, that protects the capsule during the heat of reentry, it wore away differently than we expected. We had to understand why that erosion variation in the heat shield occurred to make sure that our astronauts would be safe during Artemis 2. Our team did identify the correct root cause of the Artemis heat shield issue. They also validated that our test approach would bound the risk that, again, ultimately led to the flight rationale that it was safe to fly.
Delhi frequently experiences air pollution levels that reach severe health hazard. Pregnant women and their unborn babies are especially at risk.
Ashma Gupta and her husband are worried about the health of their unborn child.
I'm here to see my doctor because I'm feeling anxious and having trouble breathing.
Air pollution in Delhi is at hazardous levels, and Ashma wants to see a gynecologist to check her baby is not in danger. It's due in 1 month. A doctor's assistant measures high blood pressure and reduced activity of her unborn child. Dr. Aparna advises Ashma to stay indoors, like many of her other patients.
How is she?
She has seen a sharp rise in pregnant women complaining of breathing difficulties and mothers forced to give birth prematurely.
There are multiple factors of preterm delivery, but one of them is air pollution, because the level of air pollution is very high in Delhi this time, and every pregnant women are having some breathing issues, respiratory issue, breathlessness, and pain abdomen. That's why there is increased chance of preterm delivery.
Delhi is one of the most air polluted cities in the world. Many of them are in South Asia. And medical studies show that the region has the highest rates of pregnancy loss globally. Experts say there is a link. In India, some activists blame the health crisis on a lack of political will to balance rapid development with environmental protection, pointing out that there are some who suffer more than others.
See, the toxic smog is affecting everyone in the city. It is not going to spare anybody, but it's the underprivileged who are the most vulnerable.
Meet Lalita Devi, a daily wage laborer working in construction. She is one of the many invisible hands that power India's economic growth. She is due to give birth in a few months and has no way to protect herself from toxic fumes. Her home in the slums offers no insulation, and she has to go out to earn money.
I have 3 children to feed. We're poor people. If we don't go out to work, how will we survive?
It's taking a huge toll on her health.
Sometimes I cough. Sometimes I get a headache. I feel dizzy and I can't stand for long. My back hurts at times, and when I think about my child, I feel uneasy.
It's stories like Lalita's that make Baureen Kandari angry. The activist says it's time authorities take action and start protecting the lives of mothers and children.
We expect from the government nothing short of clean air. This is what the citizens want. This is what the Article 21 of our Constitution says. For our children, it's our right to clean air, clean water.
And that right, she says, applies to all mothers and children, whether they are rich or poor.
And that's all we have on the show for you. Thank you very much for watching.
ये किसान की मजबूरी है इसको जलाना बिल्कुल नहीं चाहता।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश का पालन करें, हम कानून के दायरे में रहकर काम करें, लेकिन हमारे लिए तो नहीं कोई कर रहा।
There is no wind in the city to blow it all away. The air cannot rise high enough to disperse, so everything gets trapped, and that's the reason why every winter we see pollution levels spiraling out of control.
If I zoom down from the global findings to the national level findings, what we really see is that air pollution continues to be the greatest external threat to human life expectancy.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Thank you, Barun Das. I think the entire TV9 team for putting together such a great, fantastic show.
I would like to congratulate TV9 for organizing the first ever News9 Global Summit, and I'm sure it will be a great success.
It's indeed an immense pleasure and honor for me to
we present here in this News9 Global Summit.
If it's a cancer, then what?
It's very distressing.
Anyone can have cancer.
Mentality है कि ये बीमारी मुझे नहीं हो सकती. There's a thing called cancer is right inside me.